in the right place. If you're tuned in across the country on all our frequencies, you're in the right place. And if you've clicked in on KTN Home, or rather on KTN, you are also in the right place. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, getting into its second hour, and we will be having a conversation about which way for ODM, with a greater conversation which way for the opposition. Homa Bay Town MP Peter Kaluma will be with us in a few minutes, and even as he gets in and gets settled, let's talk about the opportunities that are being provided for young people in this country, and in terms of what they can do to bridge certain gaps with the Tujiajiri.
Yes, and KCB has seen a problem, which is unemployment rate in the country, which we talk about over 1 million young people who enter into labor market annually, and that is around 12.7% of youth age between 15 to 35. And KCB says because there's a problem, will come in and give a solution. Now, the solution we're talking about is to upskill and equally just take them through training and give them certification that they need. And some of the areas that KCB Foundation is looking at through the Tujiajiri is training, business development trainings, access to finance, financing the entrepreneurship, thus spurring growth and development of micro, small and macro economies. And with these, KCB is saying we will bridge these by giving you the skill that you can enhance, start your business, entrepreneurship, give you mentors, and make sure that you grow. And the sectors that they are looking into include construction, manufacturing, beauty and personal care, domestic care, automotive, creative economy, ICT, sustainable agriculture, and climate change initiatives, as well as health. These are the areas that KCB Foundation through the Tujiajiri program is looking at. And if you are interested and want to go through this, there is a rigorous process that you have to go through for you to get admission, because remember, it is a competitive process and everybody gets in by merit. So if you're interested, kcb.com/foundation.
Okay. I mean, it's great stuff, and I think that there's so many people who've been connected with an opportunity who otherwise would not have had one. So that work continues, and we keep talking about it for sure. All right. Do you think it's necessary to have an opposition?
Yes.
Why?
By all means necessary.
Why?
I mean, if you look at the formation of opposition back, say, during Kibaki's time, when the leader of opposition would come in, have shadow cabinet, and be able to just challenge government on, I think what you're doing is the wrong thing. Do it this way, and I think we will be able to give Kenyans good service.
Does it yield any results? Do you really think that because an opposition is in place, that when you have an eye on you, essentially watching everything that you do, that it will persuade you to always do the right thing? Do you think that that is what is one of the maybe salient but clear roles of an opposition? It's kind of like the monkey on your shoulder, that you are aware that it is there, but it is not in your foresight, but you know that it is there. Do you think that governments do what they're supposed to do as a result of the opposition being there?
I mean, let's say the opposition, let's talk about an opposition that I envision, an opposition that would say, okay, fine, there is SHA, because this is something that goes through the legislative arm of government to pass it into an act of parliament and all that. And before the rollout of this, perhaps the opposition would push you and stop you on your tracks and say, before we launch it, let us have a pilot program that will guide us on how well to implement, not essentially saying no to what it is you want to do, because that is a government project, but just helping by guiding you on what is necessary for the citizenry to get that which they deserve.
City, do you think there needs to be unity in that said opposition? Because obviously the opposition is made up of, like-minded individuals who did not make it into government for whatever reason, right? Is it necessary for them amongst themselves to be unified in purpose?
Political unity is often fostered by a commonality of purpose. Now, commonality of purpose, here, big words for something very simple. When their interests align.
Yes.
Okay. When they misalign, then they fall apart again. Because if you look at the politics of our country, many of these players have at one point or the other been in one party or the other. The musical chairs of our politics is known. It's in the public domain. There's nothing to talk about as though it was some big event. It's something that is normal. So these people know each other. They better still they even understand each other.
Yeah.
So there's a point at which they haven't seen eye to eye. And give it time, usually they do tend to see eye to eye after a while. So as I said, when the interests align, they will either be in the opposition together or they will be in government together. When they misalign, then the togetherness will cease. Yes. So this isn't one of those profound philosophical things that you look at and you say, well forget it. Interests. Period. So just look at the direction that the interests have taken, and it'll give you an answer to the question. Being in the opposition, same. Is it ideological? It is stated as though it is, but it hardly ever is. And to understand, it's just the recent inclusion into the broad-based government. Today, this government must. Appointment. My goodness gracious me, there is no more wonderful a government than this one on the planet of so
it even makes you make up words.
so you think, what on earth are we dealing with here? So once you've understood, focus on the word interests, okay? It will answer all the questions that you have regarding the opposition.
But essentially, City, what would be the perfect opposition in your own terms, aside from the current opposition that we're talking about in terms of aligning interests or not, the perfect opposition that you would want to see in the Republic?
Actually, I see it. It's not I want to see it. The perfect opposition is when you have a citizenry who have understood that these individuals we vote in, unless we keep them in check, they will never look after our interests. They will look after our interests when their interests are threatened. And it is threatened when they know that we are aware of what we are doing and we may decide to remove them. That is the perfect opposition. If you're talking about a democracy, when you have a citizenry who understand their position and they will exercise it, and those in authority know they'll exercise it, then those in authority, because of whether it's and in this case it's delegated, will behave. They will behave. But so long as the citizenry are asleep, then they'll be taken advantage of.
So who is the opposition then?
The people.
The people.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the
And
day,
they are
if you have
also the
folks-
government.
the people are the opposition, the people are the government,
Yes.
essentially, to whom that any action or to whom are held as sovereign.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We forget it too
It is
often.
us on whom we are the duty bearers for the accountability we speak of, not the people we elect. We elect them to represent us, and when they don't, then we take back our rightful position. That is really what it is. Yes.
And I think that is what civic education ought to really harp on. Because for too long, for too far, I don't think that the majority of people actually do realize the sovereignty that is placed on their shoulders.
Many
No.
don't. Many don't want that.
I mean, because it sounds like it's a lot of responsibility, and to an extent it is.
Oh yes,
But
but
there are
it is.
certain things that you must do, that you will not allow a situation where somebody cannot be held responsible or accountable for the things that you put in their hands. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the livelihoods of millions of people. We're talking about the funds that essentially would secure the livelihoods of millions of people, whichever sector you want to look at it. So why don't we take it more seriously? We should actually take it more seriously, because here we are saying that an opposition should essentially oppose the excesses
yes.
of government, right? In one way or another, ensure that you're oversighting these excesses and making sure that you're keeping things in check on behalf of the people. But if you go into this position of opposition and in your foresight is not really the security, the livelihoods of people, then you're going to have a very difficult time. And that is why it will be so easy for you to sing this song today and another one tomorrow, because the people that you essentially are representing are not the millions. It is you.
You actually cease to represent the people, you represent yourself.
Yes.
And that
You're
is
representing yourself.
Yes, and that's where the citizenry and the sovereign must understand that you're the duty bearer to keep these people alert and to understand, remind them constantly.
Yeah.
Guy, you actually, yeah.
And I think even when we talk about our civic duty and civic education that needs to be there, we must remind the citizenry that this civic education, don't expect it to come from your leaders. This civic education starts with you and ends with you, because those that you have delegated the duties to will come back with their own interest and whip you into these boxes that only satisfies them. Therefore, when you talk about civic education, it is we the people to sit down and look at how best we will play the role of both the opposition and the government, because the power belongs to the people.
You see, this is why I'm actually, initially, I may have been met with some like, oh, okay, what's going on here? But I'm not surprised. I'm actually not disappointed. Because for the longest time, we've been told what, leadership and how leadership regards you. You've been told over and over and over again. So when somebody sings this song tomorrow and then goes from harmony to melody the next day, or is even singing some cacophonous thing when it's time to sing tomorrow, and then we're surprised, well, what did you expect? That is not what their intent was from the very beginning. And we should be able to look across and say, you know what, I'm very sure in my mind that this individual or this group of people is very concerned about their livelihoods and development and making sure that good governance and leadership is reigning above all. You should be able to. But you heard these things over and over again. That is why it doesn't surprise me when you hear somebody, berating, insulting a leader, and then tomorrow is heaping praises on his head. Same mouth, same leader. That's why it doesn't surprise me, because their intent from the very beginning was not for you. And so they can move as it suits them. And you must realize it is them that it suits.
Yeah, and I think it's a bad time that the citizenry as well. I look forward to a day when a certain member of parliament will be recalled. And be told,
it will happen,
and be told, you are not serving our interest. This is not why we sent you to the National Assembly, to the Senate, And I look forward to that day, City.
Did you ever think that we would have a deputy president impeached in this country?
No one actually saw that coming.
Did you imagine? I hadn't imagined it. When we had governors, we understood that governors could be impeached.
Yeah.
But did we ever see a situation where a governor would be impeached? No. We've had several impeached.
Impeached, yeah.
And impeached, properly gone, dusted, finished. That story has ended. And hallelujah for the new year. Okay, yeah. So once you see that process taking place, then the impossibility factor has been removed.
Yeah.
It is a possibility. MPs are much smaller fry than a governor or a deputy president.
And you see the beauty of all this impeachment, because we're looking at governors being impeached and we thought, it's just a governor. The deputy president was impeached. And that just opened a new door. The president could also be impeached because it is the people.
The path that had previously not been trodden has now been trodden. So it is clear that, yes, we now see the way.
The doors are open.
Wide.
Well, those are some of the things that we look at. And when we talk about the fact that folks are still trying to ensure that their way in the opposition is solid and kept, it is on such times that we then invite members of parliament, such as George Peter Kaluma, who is the Homa Bay Town MP, to have these conversations with us. And he will do a number of things this morning. First on the agenda, greeting us Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Yeah. How are you?
Happy New Year, City. Happy New Year, brother Njugos. I hope you're doing well.
We are fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Happy New Year to all Kenyans.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for doing that.
Too late into the year.
Let me tell you.
Spice FM is the home.
We are happy to see you.
Yeah, great. Happy to see you.
We would have been happier.
Yes.
If we had seen you 21 minutes ago.
Yeah, there is a problem with the jam. The current government is doing a lot around the roads. But
they've been doing it for a while.
2 years?
2 years. This particular
quite some work. The roads are many across Kenya. But again, the schools have opened. And so there is a lot of traffic jam.
Yeah.
But so I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry I'm arriving late. I always keep time.
We end up there eventually.
I want to start the new year in an apologetic note.
Okay. I believe it was your colleague Millie Odhiambo who said, before when we used to demand, now we
request.
Encourage.
Yes, old dogs never learn new tricks. Some of the problems we have.
I have seen old dogs learning new traits.
I've seen old dogs learn new traits.
I used to be told that dogs don't eat vegetables. I've seen dogs eating vegetables.
No,
My dear, it's the economy.
I've even seen dogs eating fruits.
When a dog is used to tialala tipping, they may have difficulties discussing national issues on the table.
Barakaluma, thank you so much for being here. You know, there's a lot to talk about, but let's welcome you quickly. CT gets the proverbs, and he'll tell you where we are this week, and he'll tell you the proverb for today, which I think is quite an interesting one.
We are in the Republic of Rwanda, okay? Landlocked country in the Great Rift Valley of Africa. The sharpness of the tongue defeats the sharpness of the warrior.
City, the tongue can do more damage than a single warrior or a contingent of them. You remember what happened in Rwanda? Just a single statement or two, and the nation was inflamed, and you had the genocide. You know what happened in Kenya before. A single statement coming especially from a leader, because being a leader means you are followed, can either inflame people positively, not positively, inflame people negatively, or excite people to do, positive things. It's like the single statement you saw President, Trump make yesterday, that there are only two gender categories, male and female.
That's it.
See, the whole world is swept into it.
Yes.
When just the other day, you remember, I was in this studio fighting very hard for that common thing which is so obvious. And because those other past leaders were speaking the opposite, we would not get it. So the tongue is a very powerful tool.
So we ought to be
careful. The Bible also warns that be careful about what comes out of your tongue.
Indeed.
Yes.
I think that's great. So then it's also maybe a warning about how we must be very careful what we say, especially when you have a platform, when you have the ears of millions of people every day.
Certainly.
So a lot of things are being said in Kenya at the moment. There's a lot of spewing of, political barbs. There are many things that are being said. But even as we take that into consideration, let's look at the way forward that we've been talking about over the last few weeks. And that ODM, which has stood firmly for the longest time in the position of opposition, seems to have, I said it this morning, gotten into bed with the government and then had a baby.
Yeah, not necessarily. I've been here before, Ndu.
Yes.
I think a number of us are not alive to the structure of government in the new constitution.
Okay.
Before the current constitution, we had a parliamentary system of government. And so that constitutional order had a government side and an opposition side. Okay? And so when you went to our parliament, the members of parliament were also ministers. So they were government side. The other side were opposition, and they had what we called, shadow, ministers. In the current system, in our new constitution, we are a presidential system. In a presidential system, everyone is in government. Okay? So if you look at Article 4 of the Constitution, it tells you Kenya is a multi-party democratic state.
Yes.
Okay? And most of those parties that qualify, including the ODM party, are funded by the taxpayer.
Yes.
For that important role in governance they play. When you go to parliament, therefore, you don't have the government side and the opposition side. You have the majority side
and the
minority side. And so parliament as an institution, unlike before, is now required to oversight the government. And that is the work of what was opposition then.
Okay.
In an ideal situation, it should be Chungwa as majority leader leading our attack on government if there are wrongdoings, if there are abductions, if there are maladministration, if there is bad governance. It should actually be Chungwa leading the attack. Now, instead of accepting that obvious situation, you get people still saying you are opposition. There is a side which can, do whatever they want because they are in some imaginary government. That is not how it should work. So the structure we have, and when you look at how resources are dealt with, be it under devolution, be it public appointments. I took Kenyans through Article 232 of the Constitution the other day, where he said, when you are constituting, for instance, offices in public service, you will have the face of Kenya. It does not tell you the face of Kenya in terms of Kenyans whose president was elected. It is everybody, okay, with the merit, with the competences to serve the country. Okay. And that is why I gave you an example last time, that you have this American ambassador who returned, Meg Whitman.
Whitman, yeah.
Yes, Whitman was a Republican. She was posted here as ambassador by the Democratic Party. You get what I'm talking about? It matters not.
Because
once a government,
the ideology of what you should do as government remains it remains front and center. It is the first item on the agenda.
Correct.
So from whatever side that you're on, that if they see this as somebody with an ideological base, they can be sure that this person will deliver no matter what.
Yes, correct. And if there is something that is wrong, like you remember I was telling you, CT, the other day, that you must be out of your mind as a Kenyan to speak for something like abduction. Because abduction is the worst form of torture you can ever have. And when you go even to our Bill of Rights in the Constitution, you will be told that only 3 rights, excluding even the right to life, cannot be limited.
Okay.
The right to life can be limited. When you commit capital offenses, we will order you to be hung. But something like freedom from torture cannot be limited. Why? When you, for example, abduct a person, for the parents of those people, for the relatives, for the friends, for those who know them, you are killing them each and every second because they don't know your lot as a human being. And so in unanimity, wherever the side of government you are, when something is wrong, like abduction, you must come forth and say, this is wrong. Whoever is doing it must stop. And so let me, to go straight to your question, tell you that ODM is a very united party.
Okay, let me ask you a question
ODM
based on what you've just said.
United.
2 gentlemen, in the last couple of days, number one, Secretary General of ODM, Edwin Sifuna, was actually seated where you're seated today. He said outside of here, in this room, and also later on in some of his other engagements, basically said the same thing. They basically twinned in statements with Siaya Governor James Orengo. And this is what they said, essentially, that ODM cannot be seen to continue heaping praises on Ruto's government because a number of the individuals have been made part of government. That you must be very clear where the lines are. Essentially, that is what they said. How does that then now pair with what you're saying?
It falls to what I'm saying. In fact, we are saying the same thing.
In fact, I think the words that James Orengo used was, ODM must not be part of Ruto's praise and worship team.
That is our policy. We are in the business of saying what is right, or praising what is good as good, okay? As we are also in the business of criticizing positively what is wrong or constructively. If something is wrong, we have to say it is wrong. If something is good, we have to say it is good. Let me tell you, Ndu. I've been in the security committee since 2013. How many terrorist attacks have you seen this year? People may not know, and we don't quite disclose these things. But if I told you the number of attempts by terrorists to enter this country which have been thwarted by the police, you would be shocked. And so when the police do well, I'll say, on this, you've secured Kenyans. When Kenyans disappear and the police, which is the long arm of government, cannot tell us where they are, I'm also in my right place as an ODM member to say there is a lapse. in regard to how we are being policed, at this level. And so let me say that Orengo, Sifuna are right. I don't know why Kenyans are imbibing things which personally I don't listen to. They are saying, as ODM, we are not in the business of being praise and worship people. But we are also not in the business of just criticizing negatively for the sake of it.
But let me clarify what Edwin Sifuna said. He said, ODM leaders in government must stop being sycophants. That doesn't come from a place where he's trying to just say that the party must praise what is good and then, castigate what is wrong. He's saying essentially that ODM leaders who have gone into government have become sycophants for government. And this is coming from a place where it is frowned upon.
Let me clarify a few things. People have been saying ODM is not in government. ODM is in some imaginary opposition, which I can challenge you. Show me that thing you call opposition in our structure of government in the constitution, and I'll give you 1 million. You will not get it. Okay?
You will not get the 1 million? Or
you
will
will not get opposition in our structure of government. So you must understand people like Orengo coming from the old constitution still singing, opposition. But let me clarify the following. You have the minister in charge of national treasury and economic planning, a member of ODM. I want you to take them down. You have then the minister in charge of mining and blue economy in ODM, meaning all the wealth of the nation under the earth and under the waters is an ODM member. Remember, they resigned from being officials, but they remain members of the party. ODM. And when we talk about blue economy, there is a reason as to why we changed it from waters, Njugos, to blue economy. Okay? Kenya has an exclusive economic zone which comes from the shore 200 nautical miles into the Indian Ocean. That is our area for exclusive economic exploitation. Whether it is petroleum that is discovered, whether it is fish stocks, whether it is crabs, everything. That is our wealth. So all wealth in Kenya under the earth and under the waters, both the oceans and the internal waters, are under Joe. Oparanya, who was a deputy party leader of ODM, now a member of ODM, is in charge of cooperatives, micro, small and medium enterprises, meaning all finances beyond mainstream financial institutions and big companies like Standard Media Group are under the charge of ODM. Wandai is the Minister for Energy and Petroleum Development. For my car to move here,
if Wandai says we are
moving across here, these lights we are seeing is a member of the ODM. Now, beyond that wealth of Kenya, and let us be factual, an ODM member, Beatrice Askol, is the Minister for East African Community and Regional Integration. You know, East African Community is now Somalia, South Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi,
Ethiopia.
You know, Ethiopia is being processed, but is on board. Kenya, and then you have DRC. A single DRC can feed the entire world. Now, that is also under ODM. Now, I want to ask you a question, though. Is it that these people who are saying ODM is not in government are the ones who do not know, or they are taking Kenyans for fools? You can have your members running those portfolio in government, and you look at Kenyans in the face and say you are in some opposition thing.
Okay.
I mean, who is taking who?
But
for fools. So the fact of the matter is what I told you.
Yes.
All political parties, all Kenyans are in the government of the Republic of Kenya.
It's one big happy
but
party.
They are in different political formations.
Okay,
Look at what happened in the US yesterday.
Kaluma, I want to go to
everybody, including Biden. If you asked them today,
they said they are
who
part
is
of
the president of the United States of America, Biden will tell you
it's Trump.
It is President Trump.
But
everybody
obviously
falls in line. In Kenya, after election, when we say now we have a president, we are a constitutional democracy. Let us wait for the next election. People say, oh, you are now in bed. In bed with what?
Okay.
You're a Kenyan.
Kaluma, I need you to answer this question before we go to break. Your Secretary General has said very clearly that leaders of this government, which you have said is very clear that everybody now belongs to, should not be sycophants because they are still members of the ODM party. What do you have to say about that? Because
Let me tell you,
there's an element of sycophancy which has now been seen to be the issue. Not just cabinet secretaries, but also members of parliament who are still ODM members. So where would that come from?
let me tell you, Sifuna is the Secretary General of the party.
Yes.
And Sifuna is the official spokesperson of the party.
Indeed.
But we must draw a line between what he speaks on behalf of the party. Like you remember the statement he was reading after the Central Management Committee meeting. I don't know where it could be contradicted by us. With what Sifuna says outside of the party as an individual. Now, Sifuna has said that ODM cannot play sycophancy to government. And I can tell you he's 100% right. Even if he's saying that by himself as an individual, as he did, away from the party. He's very right. We are not in the business of sycophancy. Yet we'll also not be in the business of criticizing for the sake of it. We will always agree as ODM members, and let me end this by this, if you would permit to. As ODM members, have never heard of any disagreement in principle among us. Because the ideals of the ODM party are very clear. What we need to fight for as party members are very clear. What I see as disagree on at times are approaches and timing. And that may be misinterpreted by some people to be sycophancy, which it may not necessarily be. You know, a wise person knows how best to approach an issue so that you succeed. A wise person also knows when to talk what and to whom and in what manner.
In what manner?
Yes, so where we've been disagreeing, which has been portrayed by the media, though, that there could be some disagreement, in ODM, with Sifuna, sometimes with Orengo, when people, look at us, are the kind of approaches we need to adapt as we pursue the agenda of ODM as of this time. You remember now.
I want to take a break, and we can come back and look at that. Homa Bay Town MP George Peter Kaluma is our guest this hour. We're looking at, so which way forward? There's been so much talk in government, not in government. Okay, so if then, so what? We'll take a break and we're back right after this.
At Standard Talanta Academy, a collaboration between Talanta Institute and Standard Group, we are forging the next generation of media moguls, driving economic transformation and shaping the future. Introducing our flagship program, the Media Mastery Course. From TV and film production, photography to digital journalism, we are about action. Our hands-on approach means you will be creating, producing and innovating from day one. But we don't stop at technical skills. We empower you with life and entrepreneurship skills. And with Standard Group, home to KTN, Radio Maisha, Spice FM, the Standard newspaper.
Talking about, we are in a presidential system, and yet again, and Mheshimiwa Kaluma has stated quite clearly, there are people who bring forth arguments, and you get the impression that they still think that we are in a parliamentary system of government. That having been said, explain so that it is understood, Mheshimiwa, what it is then, if I'm to go by what you've said, that in a presidential system there is, and according to our constitution, there is no opposition, so to speak. So what then is the role of the elected leader who is in parliament and who is not directly involved in the day-to-day running of the government as a member of the executive?
Yes, so the role of parliament in a presidential system is what the role of our parliament are. If you look at Articles 93 to 96, you'll get all of them there. And these roles are three. And they are roles of parliament, not the government side or opposition, because those do not exist in a presidential system. Those roles are representation. Those roles are legislation. Those roles are oversight. Oversight is supervision. it is the role that in a parliamentary system vests in the opposition. And that is why I started by telling you that ideally the person who should be leading our opposition against bad government policies, if for instance the finance bill has problems, is the majority leader. The majority leader, if you look at Article 1.8 of the Constitution, is the majority leader of the House, not of a side. But when you see our majority leader speak, you may think it's for one side. And it started with Duale. When you speak as a majority, you are a leader of the entire House, and you are differently facilitated from other members, of course. And that is what it should be. The leader, therefore, has to say if anything is wrong. Like you remember, there is a time I came to KTN here and I had to walk out of the station. Yes. Remember in 2003, after the killing of so many people in Kisumu on 21st July of that year. And you had the AG, Ndu, saying that nobody was killed. Nobody was killed. The MPs and the leaders in that part of Kenya just hired corpses and went parading them. And as the person who led our team in seeing the bodies who were shot in the head, in their heart, in their loin, at Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, I said, no, this can't be the IG I work with in the security sector. I can't have vetted this guy. And remember, I walked out of this station when a member of parliament was saying, the IG is right, those were hired bodies. I'm saying, when you are a member of parliament, whether it is a wrong or bad governance being meted out to your side or the other side, your duty is to speak for the entire country for their good governance. That is where it is.
Now,
those who crafted our constitution envisioned an ideal presidential system where the president's role in parliament was not what we see now. Because in a parliamentary system, the leader of government will come from the party that is the majority, and this leader will have sway in the executive as well as parliament because he is the leader of the majority. However, in a presidential system, that is not to be the case. Why didn't we envision a situation where we would have a president or a presidency that actually has ensured that it actually has a say in the happenings and the goings on in parliament?
Let me tell you, the leadership of government in the United States, which has just gone out, was by President Trump. Trump did not have majority in the House.
No, the outgoing. The
outgoing.
Yes, the outgoing.
Was Biden.
Sorry, Biden.
Yes.
Sorry, I was mixing. Now, Biden, the majority leadership in the House of Congress was a Republican.
Yes.
Because the Republicans were the majority.
Yes, they were.
Okay?
Yes.
And that is why I'm saying we need to understand our new constitutional setup. In Kenya, when we went to elections in 2022, the results of the election in truth is that the Azimio side were the majority MPs. And you saw the regime believe that there cannot be a parliament where they are minority when they have the presidency. And so the UDM parties were, taken in, and that took 7 MPs from us immediately. And that tilted the balance. And I can tell you the case over who is the majority side in parliament is in court even to date. You get what I mean? But I'm saying that is so, and those disputes are there because we've refused to understand that you may have a president who has the minority members in parliament. And that howsoever it is, parliament as an institution altogether must oversight the executive, and that is why they fight. So they fight to have majority, even when it means co-opting parties, so that they can infiltrate the institution of parliament, from which they are already kept by the constitution. Get what it is? And so it is bad governance, and it is a weakness in our system that allows people to swift positions without, due regard to the constitution and the law. Otherwise, don't blame it on the president. Blame it on the parties, the weak parties, and the weak individuals who allow themselves to be swayed anyhow.
Now, Kaluma, I hear you say that in the current presidential system, that majority leader in the House is essentially supposed to lead troops in House in checking excesses or the bad that is being done by the executive. But that has not been the case if you look at how things have been. If you look at Opio Andai has been leading the troops in checking the excesses in the National Assembly, which has come out to look as though ODM has been the opposition, if you may. But here we are now, Opio Andai is out. Sifuna, who is the Secretary General of the party, has come out with the position that ODM will not sing kumbaya to the to government. Here you say you are in government. So in terms of now that Wandai is not there, who will be checking the excesses, because Ishungo will not be doing that?
So
and has not shown any signs of doing that.
Under the constitution, and we are a constitutional democracy, it is the business of all members of parliament in both the National Assembly and the Senate to oversight government. And you know, there is something I've been saying, that Sifuna is right. We are not in the business of sycophancy. Let all keep to the constitutional mandate. The reason as to why some people have been singing, you are in opposition, is the mindset that when you are in opposition, you are not entitled to resources of government, including public service appointments. And so they have sung this thing to people whose candidate is never elected, to exclude them. And that is what I'm saying no to. I'm saying that our constitution expects that once any government is constituted, when you are sharing resources, there must be equity across the nation. That is why you have things like devolution. I've said that this must be so, and that is why when you look at Article 232 of the Constitution, it tells you all Kenyans will be in every level of government, at all cadres, all ethnic groups, minorities, and others. Now, the people singing to you, you are in opposition. In their head are people who imagine, we went for a contest, we won. And so because we have the president, everything is ours. And that is the noise you've been seeing people saying, ODM has now gone into government. I mean, let me give you the example, though.
Yeah. Please.
When cabinet was kicked out and a new one was constituted, let me tell you, the first to be nominated, my brother, were 11. And this 11, if you looked at it, President Ruto took 5. And those 5, he gave the Minister for Health to Western Kenya, gave the Minister for Education to Nyanza. I don't know whether you remember. The entire Rift Valley only gave Chirchir, Minister for Roads. The other one was Mvuria in Kwale. And his 5th was Duale. You see how he looked at the nation. He gave 5 to Gachagua. And Gachagua took, no, not 5, 6. And he took all those 6 to Mount Kenya. And you remember that very Sunday he was in a church saying, we had 8 cows. I've returned 6. I'm searching for the other 2. And you didn't even hear the Gen Z saying, there is a problem. When I made noise in Parliament, remember that day, and you interrogated me here, and I'd committed a sin, I was preaching tribalism. When I said, no, you cannot have people from largely 2 regions of the country, or just 1 region plus a few droppings, and then you leave other Kenyans. If you don't appoint other people by tomorrow, we will kill this list. And so you remember, then that very tomorrow, Mbadi and others are appointed. Do you remember? Now, when they are appointed, see what Raila did. And sometimes give credit when it is due. ODM is then given 5. You have a Suba minority. You have Wandai Aluo. You have Beatrice Askol at Turkana. You have Joe from the coast. You have Oparanya from Western. You see how they are distributed. You get what I'm talking about? What happened beginning that evening? Raila, whom people had no issue with, when Gachagua was taking 6 to Mount Kenya, immediately became a conman, a traitor, who was now benefiting from Gen Z blood. You see, the mindset is that the ODM side, whose candidate did not get presidency, should be nowhere. And even after that, Yugus, and let us speak about these things, frankly. Yeah? The other day, President Ruto meets with President Uhuru Kenyatta. And as an ODM member, I say, that is good. Let leaders meet. Yesterday, Trump was being sworn. And you saw all presidents, including Biden.
Yeah.
And by the way, whose candidate he defeated. All of them, including Bill Clinton, Bush, you saw them there. And I said, this is beautiful. Our leaders need to be meeting. It's then given 6 positions, very big positions, by the way.
I understand this, and I think I know this is the question.
I know you now want to stop me.
No, I don't want to stop you.
I know you now want to stop me.
I don't want to stop you. See, this is the thing about a highway. This is the thing about a highway, is that you don't stop in the middle of the highway. Yes. It's possible that you will take a left turn or you will take a right turn as you go. And this is my question here. And I'm going to be in the position right now of many Kenyans who are asking the question that all the things that you're saying, Kaluma, makes sense.
Yes.
Not a problem here.
Yes.
But not too long ago, this kumbaya moment where everybody is friends and loving one another is great, but it was not the case. That people said significantly different things. People behaved in a significantly different manner. So the people of Kenya, not this party that you all are having here, the people of Kenya whom you represent are saying, okay, so where do you actually stand? And who are you actually representing? How do you answer those Kenyans?
Are we saying that this constitution ushered in an era where being in the opposition has nothing to do with having been in a party that was defeated in an election? And you're saying that the new constitution actually allows for a situation where even those who were defeated in an election, because we do not have an opposition, as stated in our constitution, can be co-opted into government because we only have majority and minority. Is that what you're saying?
No. And as well, as we talk about that, there is something that Ndu is raising. The Kumbaya moment that we have. The Cabinet Secretary for Treasury, as we speak right now, John Mbadi, even the current Finance Act that we're using, he opposed it. He was really against it in 2023. How is it now that he's implementing something that he did not believe in?
Yes, so CT put the question clear. Is it the case that when you don't capture power and you go into the opposition, then you just, behave as
if... Is it that if you don't capture power, you then go into opposition?
Now number one, there is no opposition.
Yes.
And that is what I started by saying.
Yes.
When you don't capture power as a presidential candidate, you are at home. You are not in the governance structures. Your members of parliament have a role together with other members of parliament to jointly oversight government.
Oversight is role.
I told you, is supervision. It is saying you are right here, continue, okay? You are wrong here, stop it, because it is not good for the country.
But Kaluma, leaders from the majority party have never oversighted the government. Honestly, we see that every day.
No, Dennis, it's not leaders in the majority. It is the political class. The understanding of oversight is tied in and embedded with the hip
of the opposition, which does not exist.
Yes.
You get it? And so when Kaluma says, for instance, today, that on this, President Ruto, you've done well, you get people who do not understand where he's coming from, coming to shout, Kaluma is now a sycophant. You know what I mean? Because they expect Kaluma to be in some opposition.
I have 20 seconds.
Yes.
What should Kenyans think, really, about this and say, okay, the people who represent us, which way should we follow?
Let us follow the constitution and the law. We are a rule of law country. That is important for me. Let us not, insist there are government and opposition side. We don't have that. Let us all look for the good of the country and let us agree to the situation that all are in government and all have to play their role for the good of the entire country.
Hometown MP George Peter Kaluma has been our guest this hour and says, you know what? It's everybody. We're all doing this together. And that's how we should think about it. These conversations must continue. Good morning. It is 8 o'clock.
Line, mobile, and on radio.